You stepped on the scale this morning. The number was the same as last week, or slightly higher. Not dramatically, just persistently, quietly higher, without a corresponding explanation. You have not changed what you eat. If anything, you eat less than you did at 50. You move when you can. You are not sedentary. But something is not adding up. The conventional answer, the one you have probably been given at some point, is that metabolism slows with age. That is true. But it is incomplete in a way that makes it almost useless as guidance, because it implies the only variable is rate, that your body is burning fewer calories per day, and the only solution is to consume fewer or move more. What it does not tell you is that your body's fat-burning capacity after 65 is not just slower. It is more time-dependent. It operates within a specific daily window that is narrower than it was. And if your habits are not aligned with that window, the effort you are putting in is producing a fraction of the metabolic result it should. At around the 9-minute mark, I am going to show you something about the two most common pieces of advice given to seniors about when to exercise and when to eat. Advice that millions of people are following precisely and faithfully, that runs directly against the biology of fat metabolism after 65. What I show you will not require you to eat less or do more. It will only require you to do what you are already doing at a different time. Stay with me for that. I have spent more than 3 decades working in geriatric medicine. The frustration I hear most consistently from adults past 65 who are managing their weight carefully and not seeing the results they expect is not a motivation problem. It is a timing problem. And almost no one in conventional primary care is equipped to have this conversation yet, because the science of how the body's biological clock governs fat metabolism is still making its way from research into clinical practice. The research, however, is unambiguous, and it begins with a pattern that governs every cell in your body from the moment you wake up. Think of your body's fat-burning capacity as a solar panel system. In the morning, the panels are oriented directly toward the sun. The biological signals that drive fat oxidation are at their peak, the metabolic conditions are optimal, and the system is running at its maximum generating capacity. As the day moves toward evening, the panels rotate away from the light. The generating capacity drops. By night, the panels face darkness. The metabolic environment has shifted from burning to storing. After 65, those panels have lost some of their efficiency. They still generate. But the peak window is shorter, the output is lower, and what you do during those morning hours matters more than it ever has before. The question is not whether your body after 65 can still burn fat. It can. The question is whether your daily habits are scheduled inside that window or outside it. Here is what happens biologically in those morning hours, and why after 65 the window has narrowed in a specific and measurable way. The first signal in the morning fat-burning sequence is cortisol. Cortisol is often discussed as a stress hormone to be minimized, but it serves a function in the morning that is fundamental to fat metabolism. It is lipolytic. That is the term for a process that mobilizes fatty acids from adipose tissue, from stored body fat, and releases them into the bloodstream to be used as fuel. The cortisol awakening response, the natural surge of cortisol that occurs in the first 30 to 45 minutes after waking, is one of the primary biological triggers for fat mobilization at the start of the day. Simultaneously, insulin sensitivity is at its highest point in the morning. Insulin sensitivity is the measure of how efficiently your cells respond to insulin and absorb glucose from the bloodstream. When insulin sensitivity is high, as it is in the morning, your body needs less insulin to manage blood glucose, which means fat continues to be used as the preferred fuel source. When insulin sensitivity is low, as it naturally is in the evening, your body produces more insulin to manage the same glucose load, and elevated insulin signals the body to store rather than burn. After 65, both of these morning signals are present but reduced in amplitude. The cortisol awakening response produces a lower peak than it did at 45. The morning insulin sensitivity advantage is still real, but it narrows. The solar panels still face the morning sun. They simply generate less than they once did, which means the window during which fat burning is maximally supported is shorter. And what you do inside it matters more than it did in any previous decade. Before I show you the second mechanism and the exercise finding that changes how most people over 65 think about when to move, I want to plant something you will want to hold on to. Everything I am about to show you about morning exercise applies specifically to the fasted state, to the metabolic environment that exists before the first meal of the day. Because what happens to the fat-burning response when you eat before you move is a piece of this picture that almost nobody explains. Stay with me. The second signal is a molecule called AMPK, adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase. It is sometimes described as the body's metabolic master switch because when it is activated, it triggers fat oxidation, suppresses fat storage, promotes mitochondrial health, and initiates cellular cleanup processes. AMPK is activated by energy deficit, by the mild depletion of cellular fuel that occurs during overnight sleep and continues in the fasted state each morning. In a fasted morning state, when AMPK activity is at its highest, exercise, even moderate exercise, activates a set of fat-burning genes that are measurably less activated by the same exercise performed in the evening in a fed state. Studies comparing morning fasted exercise and evening fed exercise show fundamentally different cellular responses, not just in the magnitude of fat oxidation during the exercise itself, but in the metabolic adaptations that persist for hours afterward. The morning exercise rewrites the genetic instruction set for how the body handles fat for the rest of the day. The evening exercise does not produce the same rewrite. After 65, AMPK activation is less robust than it was at 45. The cellular machinery that responds to the morning energy deficit signal is working with reduced precision. But the response is still substantially present, and still greater in the morning fasted state than at any other point in the day. The solar panels may be less efficient, but they are still pointing at the sun in the morning. Scheduling exercise after the panels have gone dark does not compensate for the hours of generation that were missed. Now, the third mechanism, and this is the one that connects directly to the 9-minute mark I mentioned at the beginning. The third mechanism is the evening insulin resistance window. By early evening, from approximately 6 o'clock onward, insulin sensitivity in the adult body drops to its lowest point of the day. This is a normal circadian phenomenon, driven by the same body clock governing cortisol, melatonin, and AMPK. In the evening, the metabolic environment shifts from fuel combustion to fuel storage. The biological priority at night is not to burn what you consumed at dinner. It is to prepare the body for overnight repair and maintenance. In a younger adult with robust metabolic flexibility, this evening shift has a limited impact on overall fat balance because the morning and midday fat-burning window is long and efficient enough to compensate. After 65 with a shorter and lower amplitude morning window, the evening storage bias carries significantly more weight. The same dinner you ate at 55, the same portion, the same ingredients, the same size plate, is now metabolized in a different hormonal environment. More insulin is required to process it. More of it is directed toward fat storage rather than immediate use. And the cumulative effect of this over months and years is precisely the quiet, unexplained weight gain that is not proportional to any change in what you actually eat. Now, what I promised you at the beginning. The two pieces of conventional advice that run directly against this biology and that most adults past 65 follow without ever being told there is a biological reason to question them. The first is evening exercise. The after-dinner walk, the evening gym session, the late afternoon fitness class. These feel productive and are broadly encouraged. And the cardiovascular benefit is genuine. But for fat metabolism, specifically in adults past 65, evening exercise occurs outside the fat-burning window, in a fed and insulin-dominant metabolic state, at a time when AMPK activation is at its lowest and the fat oxidation gene response is blunted. The effort is real. The fat-burning yield is not what the same effort produces at 7 in the morning. The second is the dinner as main meal pattern. A large, calorie-dense meal in the evening delivers its metabolic load at precisely the time when insulin sensitivity is lowest, fat storage is biologically prioritized, and the body's capacity to oxidize fuel efficiently is at its daily minimum. This pattern, deeply embedded in most households and almost never questioned in clinical settings, may be one of the primary structural reasons why weight management becomes progressively harder after 65, despite no meaningful change in diet. A 2018 study published in Cell Metabolism by Sutton and colleagues demonstrated that aligning the eating window with the morning, consuming the majority of daily calories in the morning and midday hours, and closing the eating window by early afternoon, improved fat oxidation, reduced fat mass, and improved insulin sensitivity in older adults, without any reduction in total caloric intake. Same calories, different timing, different body composition. A patient of mine, a retired civil engineer, early 70s, by every conventional measure careful about his health. Non-smoker, no alcohol, walked 40 minutes every evening after dinner, ate what he described as a sensible diet, came to me 3 years into a slow, steady increase in his waist measurement and a fasting glucose creeping toward pre-diabetic range. 3 standard blood panels had found nothing specifically actionable. He had been told it was age. What had not been examined was his timing. He ate almost nothing at breakfast, sometimes a single piece of toast. He minimized lunch, and at 7 in the evening he sat down to the main meal of the day with his family, a full dinner, the largest caloric intake of his day, at the precise moment when his body's fat-burning capacity was at its lowest point and its fat storage tendency was at its highest. His walk followed at 8. 40 minutes of genuine effort performed in a fed, insulin-dominant, fat-storing metabolic environment. He was not doing anything wrong. He was doing the right things at the wrong time. When, in close consultation with his GP and a dietitian, his pattern was restructured, a protein-forward breakfast within 90 minutes of waking, a substantial lunch as his main meal of the day, a lighter dinner before 6, and his walk moved to 30 minutes after rising before breakfast. His fasting glucose began to normalize within 6 weeks. At 4 months, his waist measurement had reduced measurably. His weight on the scale had shifted modestly, but his body composition had changed more than the number reflected. Less stored fat, better preserved muscle. His energy in the morning, which he had not thought to mention as a concern, improved significantly. Same man, same total daily calories, different timing, different body. Here is what I want you to take from this video into your next appointment. 3 specific steps, each actionable immediately. The first, ask your GP for a fasting morning insulin level alongside your next standard blood panel. Use these exact words. I would like my fasting insulin measured alongside my fasting glucose, because I want to understand my insulin sensitivity as a baseline for managing my metabolism at this stage. Fasting glucose alone tells you what your blood sugar is at that moment. Fasting insulin tells you how hard your body is working to keep it there. And a high fasting insulin in the morning, even with a normal glucose reading, is one of the clearest available signals that the morning fat-burning window has narrowed and the evening insulin resistance is carrying more metabolic consequence than your current routine is accounting for. The second, for the next 7 days, try shifting your largest meal from dinner to lunch. Keep the total amount and type of food exactly the same. Change only the distribution. More at midday, less in the evening. Make a note of how your morning hunger, afternoon energy, and evening appetite feel by day 4 compared to day 1. You do not need to commit to this permanently. Observe what your body does with it. The third, move whatever physical movement you currently do in the evening to within 2 hours of waking, and do it before your first meal if that is possible for you. Start with 15 minutes, a walk, a gentle movement, anything that modestly raises your heart rate, and bring this question to your next appointment. Given what we know about morning fat-burning biology after 65, is there a specific exercise timing and fasting protocol you would recommend for my situation? That question will quickly show you whether your clinician has engaged with the chronobiology literature, and it will open a conversation that the standard appointment almost never initiates. Let me bring you back to where this began. The scale, the number that does not move the way effort suggests it should, the frustration of doing the right things and not seeing the right results. The solar panels have not stopped working, but the window in which they generate at their highest capacity is shorter than it was, and if your movement and your meals are both scheduled for the evening, you are asking the panels to generate in the dark and wondering why the output has dropped. The fat-burning biology of your body after 65 has not disappeared. It has changed its schedule. And the change is specific enough and the research clear enough that aligning your habits with that schedule is no longer a theory. It is the most evidence-based adjustment available to you, and it requires nothing you are not already doing. Over the next 7 days, note 2 things each day: what time you eat your largest meal, and what time you do any physical movement. Write them down each evening. Do not change anything yet. Just observe the pattern honestly. Because next week I'm going to show you something specific. One food that most adults past 65 eat at breakfast, widely considered healthy, commonly recommended. That blocks the fat-burning window for the following 3 to 4 hours regardless of what else you do. And I am going to show you the 3 morning habits that studies in adults past 65 have shown to activate fat-burning gene expression more reliably than any supplement available without a prescription. Your timing pattern from this week will tell you exactly which change will produce the greatest impact for your specific situation. Come back with your 7 days of observations. What I show you next week will make those numbers mean something precise. One important note before you go. Everything in this video is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for the advice of your personal physician or registered dietitian. Please do not make significant changes to your eating pattern or exercise routine without first discussing them with your doctor, particularly if you manage blood pressure, blood sugar, or take any daily medication. The goal of this video is to give you a more complete picture of the biology your body is navigating after 65, and better questions to bring to the people who can help you act on it thoughtfully and safely. That conversation is where the real change begins.